Let's talk about the Women's World Cup. Okay, the Women's World Cup has been incredibly successful. This is the most attended and on pace to be the most watched Women's World Cup in history. Jordan, what does that mean to you?
Well, first off, when I see the numbers that they've sold, I think, more tickets than they thought they were going to sell, I'm like, we need to talk whoever's doing these predictions, because how are they so off? 4 days into the tournament, they already are outselling what they think they were going to through the whole tournament. Have you been paying attention to women's soccer? That was honestly my question. I did not understand that. But it makes sense to me. There's more teams in this tournament. There's leagues all across the world where people are watching women play football on their TVs. On this network, we're watching that all the time. It makes sense to me, and it's fun to be a small part of that, to be able to chat about that on an extended level.
Yeah. Also, the fact that the women, we've just needed the media attention and the platform to show the talent that has always been in this sport. And so finally getting that recognition, and then you're seeing teams, you're seeing some teams invest, and I'm hoping this is going to inspire more federations to really invest in these different leagues and these different teams to keep elevating it, and it's just going to get better and better. Like, these women are unstoppable, and I think it's going to take over the world.
You know what's been hard, though, with 32 teams, is just keeping the groups straight. I don't know if you guys feel that, too. But luckily, a fan sent this in to me, and I feel like we need one right here between you and I, Aaron.
A massive table.
This is from Mia Camfius. Look at this. This is her art project this summer. She went every group, the games per group. There's the knockout rounds there on the right side.
This is beautiful.
It's color coded.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not kidding when I'm saying we need that. Because the groups get there's so many, and I get them all a little confused if I don't have them written down right here in front of me.
Yes, we love that from her. We want more investment like that, like people that just care about it so much that they do things like that. But again, I just wanted to get into these numbers because I didn't even mention them. 6.4 million watched the group stage game, the USA against Netherlands, which we're about to talk about. And that is the most watched Women's World Cup group stage telecast on U.S. English language television, and they also broke records in Spanish. So that's even more. I just go in awe of all that has happened in our wonderful game. But let's go ahead and talk about that game that we're talking about, the USA against Netherlands. First take, Aaron.
I just thought overall, like the word that keeps coming to my mind is naive. We just looked kind of naive overall. The Dutch really controlled that first half. They looked so tactically mature in midfield. The way that Jill Roord just kind of directed traffic in midfield, the back three just looked so confident dealing with our front three. Overall, we looked overmatched in the first half. I'm really, I am happy with the response. I'm happy that we were able to secure a point. I'm happy that there was a turnaround and a bit of fight that we saw in the second half. But the first half was very worrying, if we're going to be honest. It just looked like we were completely overmatched.
And the naive is a good word. I hadn't thought of that word, but I think you hit the nail on the head there, Aaron, because we've talked a lot about Sophia Smith, and excuse me, and Trinity Rodman, and even DeMello getting the start. But I also think that this is a game where if you don't play games like this in this type of high-stakes environment, it's hard to know how you're going to show up. Right. And I think there were moments for all those players where we thought that they looked all right, but there were also moments where their pace of play was too slow, that they weren't able to adapt in the middle of the game, which I think is maybe a bigger issue with this U.S. team, is just adapting to different tactics that teams throw at you. And I think by the end of the first half, we started to see them do that, helping Andy Sullivan a little bit more with Lindsay Horan's positioning. But it wasn't until halftime came and they could sit and really reorganize. And Julie Ertz said it after the game, hey, we needed halftime to come so we could resettle ourselves. And the second half did look a lot more calm from this group, but we expect a lot out of them.
Yeah, the expectation is high. I felt watching it, we didn't have the cohesiveness that the Netherlands had. I felt they were connecting amongst the lines. They were calm in the middle to attacking third, where I didn't think we were. We seemed quite one-dimensional. I don't know how much like our attackers all connected together. And that's where we're most dangerous. That's where our biggest threats are. So I'm hoping, you learned the most from your ties and your losses. So I know that the U.S. is going to come out this next game and everything's going to be thrown on the table. But I agree. I think it would have been nice to see more problem solving through the match, and there was nobody really like taking that on and just fixing it while the game was still happening, and they needed halftime.
I also want to say, I know we are all American and we have to like kind of focus on the American side of things, but we have to give credit to the Dutch.
They look
Their
great.
tactical
They
game
look
plan was impeccable. They talked a lot before the match and they came out and really backed it up. They proved that they are a team that is to be reckoned with. That midfield 3, the midfield 5, whatever you want to call it, where all 3 of them complement each other so well. I really did like the picture of Danielle Van de Donk and Lindsay Herrera after game. She's got like the swim cap on. That's what the game is about. It's like you kick the crap out of each other and you pick each other up after the match.
And I think both of these teams needed a test. They needed to 100%. Say, how are we going to play against the best of the best in this tournament? And the next time they play a really good team in this tournament, hopefully for both of them, it's in the knockout rounds. I think they're going to be able to be more adaptable. They're going to have more answers to questions that both teams threw at each other. And that's the most fun part, I think, of the World Cup in general, is you get to see how teams get better game after game. And I do think both of these teams can even get better than what we saw in that match.
Well, the biggest thing is that there is another group stage match.
Yes.
The USA is going to be facing Portugal, and I think the biggest thing that has come up is that only one substitute was used. There has not been a lot of rotation within the U.S. squad. The same lineups for both matches started. With this lack of testing your depth and getting resting time, what are we looking at in this Portugal match? What kind of lineup are you expecting, Darian?
I hope he switches it up and we see some. I want to see Lynn Williams. Where is Lynn Williams? I want to see her in the match. She's such a threat. I hope Ashley Sanchez gets some minutes because I think she's such a creative 10. And then I'm hoping Ertz is in that 6. Like I said last time, I hope he switches it.
It'll be interesting because if this is your best 11, I would imagine you start with this because you're saying, hey, go score goals against Portugal. And can they get to halftime with a couple of goals? And then I think we might see switches. But from what I've seen of Vlatko in these first 2 games, this seems to be what he's rolling with, is this best 11. That's what he feels. Okay, well then go score.
How feasible is that? How feasible is that in a World Cup like this? We just, how feasible is that? To play
I think
the
these players
of this,
are.
basically.
I think these players are really fit. I think that there probably will be more substitutions in this 3rd game than we saw before, and whether that's changes from the beginning or substitutions for the second 45. But it seems to me like the U.S. in the comments after the match, they're saying we have to get business done. So are there players on the bench who can take care of business? Yeah, I think so, but I'm not saying I don't think Vlatko has shown us that he is willing to make those changes.
Yeah, I think probably the biggest thing depends on Roosevelt's fitness. We don't know from the outside. I'm not want to speculate too much, but it seems like he's kind of walking her through these matches. He wants to kind of wrap her in cotton wool. He didn't start her because he wasn't sure she could last 90. Now we'll see probably where her fitness is because we need her. And probably we need her from the start. So if she starts in this Portugal match, I think she's probably fully fit. If she doesn't, then I think there's a little bit of a worry. It's like, how much do we have to walk her through each match in this tournament? Because we saw in the second half of the match against the Dutch, we need Roosevelt in the midfield. So she's
That's
a big
the one
worry
change
for me.
I do think that is the one change. Can she go 45 or 60 is the question.
We're saying that these players, can do it. This morning on Morning Footy, Jordan, we talked about how many injuries the women have been having and the fact that there are too many games on them. So I feel like the depth aspect was very important to come into play. But enough about this one. We're going to have to watch the USA against Portugal, see what lineup Vlatko Danovsky plays, and then see whether he makes more substitutions in that match. That is Tuesday night on Fox at 3 a.m. Eastern Time.